Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson. So hopefully you guys were able to actually do this, and you took some time to think about all the different components of this and how you can actually build this up. Again, this is meant to be a challenge. It's not supposed to be easy, so I wanted you guys to do this from scratch essentially, so you can do it for yourself. But anyways, we're gonna do it here, and I'm gonna explain it step by step, at least how I would do it. And keep in mind that you can always do it your own way. And when it comes to programming, everybody has a different way of doing things. As I said, it's pretty much like speaking, right? Everybody speaks differently. Everybody has a different way of saying things, and it's just how it is. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do it here, and let's talk about how this is done. So obviously, hopefully you know how to make a new project on PyCharm, and on Mac you just click on new project and you're good to go. But you want to open a new project. And also one more thing, guys, I want to point out before we start is that the full file is in the resources section, and it's going to be commented out, so that way you can actually understand each element of this whole thing, right? So the Python file, you can download it in the resource section, the final version of this code. Anyways, so we're going to start by importing a random, because obviously we're going to be guessing a number, right? So I'm going to be importing the random module. So I'm just going to say, and I'm going to import the random module integer, all right, because we need to get a random number essentially. And this is good practice to do this way. For example, usually what we do is we import random, right? But let's not do it right now this way, because I want us to import specific in specific functions inside the random module, so that way it's just a lot more cleaner and we don't pull too much resources, right? So I'm just going to say from random import rand int. All right, so this is the integer, the function we essentially need, which again generates a random integer, right? So the next thing I'm going to put in the code, which is a global variable, is going to be our lives, essentially how many lives we need to have. If you remember, there was this thing that it would ask you if you want to do it the easy way or the hard way, and based on that you would have if you choose the easy way, you would have 10 tries, and if you choose the hard way, you would have 5 tries, right? So you want to set that up right off the bat, and because again this is going to be a global variable, that means that we're not going to be changing it at least in the beginning. So we're actually going to use all caps. All right, so this is actually a common practice. I'm not sure actually if I mentioned it, but if you want to generate a global variable that is not going to be changed at least globally, what you want to do is you want to use all caps. So I'm just going to say easy level turns equals 10 and hard level turns equals 5. All right, so there you go. So we got our global variables, which are going to keep track of how many tries we have left. All right, so next one actually is, I want to think about this. Next one, I actually want to create a function. Okay, I want to create a function to check users guess against actual answer. So we wanted to actually get the information from the user, and compare it, right? So compare it with the answer. Now we haven't actually figured out the answer yet, because the answer is essentially the random number that we're going to have, but that's something I'm going to generate later on. But I just want to create a function, create the functions that we need right now. So essentially the idea, my thinking with this is that I'm going to create these modules or functions, which are essentially the building blocks of this game, right? So we're going to create these functions, and then after that we're going to put it all into the game essentially and use these functions. So I'm just going to, that's basically doing that. All right, so I'm just going to say define. So we're going to define check answer. That's what I'm going to call this. And we're going to have 3 variables. All right, so we're essentially going to have the guess and answer, so that would be the final answer, and then turns. So essentially this is going to keep track of how many turns the user has left. All right, so now I'm going to say if guess is bigger than or greater than the answer, and swear, there you go, my terrible spelling. I'm going to say print and I'm going to say too high, right? So this is when the answer is too high. So that's basically what we want to achieve. And then again, what is going to happen is that because if this happens, right, if this happens, we want to take one out, right? We're going to take one out essentially, right? So because of that, or we're going to take one out of their levels, essentially the turns that they have, right? So because of that, I want to return, right? I want to return turns minus 1. So that essentially is going to tell this, like, you know, when we replace this right here, when we replace, like, in a final version, in a final game, when we place like this, like in the function like this, what we're going to say is that, you know, take one out of the turn. So for example, if they choose 10, we're going to do minus 1, which is going to be 9 essentially. So there you go. So that's the ideal with this. All right. And then we're going to say elif is going to be elif guess less than the answer. So that means we're short, right? We're below. We're going to print too low. There you go. Let's actually, you know, push this down a little bit because my editor is going crazy. So there you go. So too low, that's the other one, right? So, and then we're going to return, okay, minus, or turns minus 1. So again, we're going to take 1 point out of the, you know, lives that they have, right? So, and then finally, you know, the last thing we're gonna remain with, which is, again, if it's not under it, if it's not over it, that means that we're gonna be guessing the right answer, right? So we're gonna say else, we're going to say print f, and then we're gonna say you got it, right? The answer was maybe answer. There you go. So just like that, we basically, again, I want you guys to understand exactly what we did here. All right. So we created a function. We're checking if the guess is, you know, bigger than the answer. We're going to say, okay, you're too high, and we take one life out of their tries, or we take one out of their available remaining tries, right? And then if it's less than the answer, that means we're going to say too low, and then we're going to take one out, right? And then if it's not under it, if it's not over it, what it's going to be is exactly the right number, right? So then we're going to say, if that's not the case, you're going to say you got it, answer was whatever, right? So that's basically the first functionality that we need. All right. Now next one is we're going to set our difficulty, right? So that's the next one. I'm just going to comment this out, function to set difficulty. There you go. All right, let's actually, again, take one below because my editor goes crazy when I don't have 2 spaces between functions. All right, so next we're going to define set. Yeah, we're going to define another one, set difficulty. All right, so we're going to say, and we're not going to have any inputs here. Okay, so we're going to say level equals input, and we're going to ask the user choose a difficulty. Type easy. That's not what I need. Easy or hard. All right. So just like that, well, let's just do that. There you go. Just like that, we're asking what level of difficulty they want to choose, right? So there you go. So then we're going to say if level equals easy, we're going to say return easy level turns, and I'm going to explain this right now. Else is going to be return hard. There you go, level turn. So what is happening here? So we're setting a function called difficulty, and we're asking, you know, the user what do they want to choose, and we're putting this inside a variable called level, and we're checking and say, okay, if, you know, level is easy, you're going to return this, okay, which is going to be essentially 10, right? If the level is hard, you're going to say 5. So essentially, this value, whatever this thing returns in value, is going to be added to added to here, turns, right? So that's basically what we're doing here. All right. So there you go. So that's the next function. And finally, we're going to create the final function of the game, which is essentially the entire game itself. All right. So I'm going to put everything inside a variable or inside a function, essentially, to just make it a lot easier, because we need to run it as a while loop, right? That's very important, because a game needs to continuously run as long as as long as you got no more tries, right? So that's very important. So that's what we need to actually put it inside a function. So I'm going to say game, and there you go. So that's fine. We're just going to do that. We're just going to go with that. It's a very simple function. So I'm just gonna first of all choose a random number. I'm gonna add a comment here. So that's what I want to do. Number between 1 and 100. So that's what I want. All right. So that's the first thing we need to do. So I'm gonna say, well, all right, let's do that. Let's print. I want to start the basic stuff that we say. For example, like I think there was a welcome, welcome message and all that stuff. So I'm gonna say welcome to the guess the number game. And we're gonna print another one. We're gonna say I'm thinking a number between 1 and 100. All right, so that's fine. These are first messages. So now let's actually generate our actual random number. All right, so we're gonna say answer here equals rand_int. That's the one we imported, and we're gonna say 1 and 100. So essentially we're generating a number between 1 and 100. Let's just give it a space here so again my editor doesn't go crazy. And then we're going to print, well, actually we're not going to do that. Like, I wanted to actually test this real quick. I wanted to say if I print this, hopefully it actually works, but it's fine. It's fine for now. All right, so I wanted to make sure that this random works. And one of the things is that when you're doing your program, obviously I'm not going to do it right now for you, but when you're actually writing your code, the most important thing is that you want to use print to always print and make sure that every aspect of your code is working. So that's really, really important. All right, so that's something to remember. All right, so I'm gonna define another thing. I'm gonna say turns equals set difficulty. So that essentially is going to get the value, run this function, right? So and get the value. All right, so that way we actually know exactly what value the user is choosing, and based on that we're going to get these numbers, right? So that's what we're going to do, set difficulty, and then we're going to start with the 0 guess. And we're going to say guess equals 0, because obviously the user hasn't actually chosen anything yet, right? So we need to ask that question, like, okay, what is the number you're choosing, right? So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to say, and then we need to actually create a while loop and put everything else in between it. All right, so I'm going to say while guess, well, there you go, that wasn't correct. While guess is not answer, right? So that would be the answer, that would be the variable that we just did here inside. We're going to print you have X amount of turns attempt remaining to guess the number. All right, so just like that, let's just make sure attempt, there you go, attempt. All right, yeah, so that's me spelling. All right, so there you go, you have X amount of attempts remaining. So now we're actually going to get a number from the user. All right, so let's actually get that number from the user. I'm going to say guess, this is the user's guess, equals integer, where obviously we need to turn this into an integer so we can actually compare it to the value to the answer value, right? Because these are all integers. That's very, very important. So we're going to say input, and we're going to say make a guess. There you go. All right, so just like that, we received a number from the user. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to track the number of turns and reduce it by 1 if they got it wrong. So that's what we need to do right now. Okay, we need to track how many turns they have available, and if they don't have any more turns remaining, they're gonna lose the game, right? So we're gonna say turns equals check answer. So we're gonna call the function we created. We're gonna say guess answer and turns. All right, so just like that, we pulled all these values that we created inside here, right? And we're basically checking. All right. So we're going to say if turns equals 0, what you're going to do is that we're going to say print you have run out of guesses. You lost. All right. And then again, essentially what we need to make sure that when this happens, we end the program immediately. So the way to do this is actually to just do an empty return. So this is going to exit the program. So elif, that would be, there you go. So the elif would be the next one. I'm going to say guess is not equals the answer. We're going to say, oh, actually, I did not get that wrong. Is not equals answer. All right, I'm going to say print, and we're going to say guess again. So that way it actually goes all the way back, right? So there you go. So again, it's just gonna go, when it's not done, it's going to just go back to the loop again. All right, so it's going to say how many returns, how many attempts they have remaining, and it's going to just ask them to make a guess. All right, so just like that, that should do it, I think. So let's actually run this game. So I'm just going to call the game function actually, so we run the whole thing, and let's give it space here so my editor doesn't go crazy again. All right, so let's there you go, there you go. So again, I just hate when I see these wiggly lines down here. Anyways, let's run this and see if it works. All right, hopefully. All right, so let's see. Welcome to Guess the Number game. I'm thinking number between 1 and 100. Choose a difficulty, type easy or hard. I'm gonna say, for example, easy. All right, so you have 10 attempts remaining. Guess the number. I'm going to say, well, I'm just gonna try to guess this correctly. So I'm gonna say 50, too high. So I know it's between 1 and 50, 1 and 49, right? So I'm going to say 25. I'm just trying to guess where is this. Too low. So that means it's been after 25 to 50. I'm going to say maybe 35. Too low. 40. Too low. Okay. 43. Too low. 44. There you go. 45. Okay, 46. What about that? There you go. So I got the answer, 46, and the answer was 46, and the program just ended. So just like that, guys, that's our game. Now, I want to just kind of go over this real quick, because I have a feeling that, you know, I went over this too quick. But again, when you're programming and when you again become a better programmer, you start to understand these things a little bit better, and you start to just like kind of just easily do these things. But remember, you know, when you are creating more complicated programs, you definitely want to always create functions that do specific things, and at the end you actually put all these functions together. So essentially what we did here, we created this function is going to check the answer, we created this function is going to set the difficulty, and then what we did was we finally put all of them in a single function. All right, and essentially, you know, like said, all right, so that's basically where you access all these functions and work with the value. So just like that, we created like 3 functions, and they include pretty much everything we need. All right, so again, this just want to go over this real quick. This is going to check the answer, and you got 3 inputs, right? So that way, you know, we can call this later on. There you go. So that we can call this later on, and locally we have all these, you know, variables defined, right? We got the guess defined, we got the answer defined, right? And then we got the turns defined as well. So like, you know, we actually are asking, and this turn is going to get the value from this, right? Set difficulty, right? So it's going to get the value from this. So just like that, you know, we know exactly what people want to choose. So like, again, we got this, we are checking for answers here, right? And then set difficulty is going to see which level is user is going to choose, and then based on that, it's going to return easy, turn this essentially into either this or this. And again, if you remember, we defined these, and these are like, again, 10 lives, 5 lives, and all that. And then finally, we accessed all of them inside this function and said, okay, let's add our text here, right? And then we got a, you know, we generated a random number, so that's our answer. And then we're going to say, okay, how many turns we have? Okay, so we got, you know, X amount based on the user, what user has chosen. So when we actually call this immediately, this is going to call this function, and it's going to ask, okay, you know, it's going to go right through here, essentially, right? It's going to ask, okay, what level you want to choose. And again, if you put this in Thunny, you are going to actually see this in action a little bit better. I don't want to do that because it's just, this is such a complicated, more complicated, you know, code that it's going to take us like another extra 10 minutes to run through this in Thunny. But like, you get the idea, you know, this is going to call that function, and then we're going to end up with 0 guesses, right? Because again, we actually haven't guessed anything yet, right? So like, this is the user guess, right? So we actually haven't asked for that yet. So we're just going to set it to 0 for now. And then we're going to get into the while loop, and we're going to say, okay, while the guess is not equal to the answer, because the answer is going to be between 1 and 100, but guess at the moment is 0, right? So we're going to say, while the guess is not the answer, what we need to do is we need to actually tell them, okay, they have this many turns left. Okay, great. And then we're going to actually ask him for a question. Okay, make a guess. And then we're going to check, right? So, and then first what we're going to do is we're going to call this function, and we're going to check how many turns we have based on the answer the user just provided, or based on the guess the user just provided, and then the answer and the like turns that we have available. So now, if turns equals 0, you're out of the, you know, guesses, you lost. If not, it's going to say guess again, and it's going to go all the way back right here, just like that. So again, I want you to like actually look at the code real quick and try to understand it. It's really not that hard when you actually look at the final solution, but hopefully you were able to make some progress with this and actually do it by yourself. But anyways, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. If not, I'll see you in the next one. And also remember, you can download the code in the resource section. So, you know, you can access the final code. I'm going to comment this out for you guys as well. So like actually add the comment. So it explains a little bit what each section does and all that stuff. But yeah, so it should be, you know, easy to understand when you actually look at the code. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. If not, I'll see you in the next one.